Good afternoon, everybody. It's the Cryptid Huntress. I'm Jessica Jones. Welcome to A Glitch in the Matrix. Boy, do I have another really interesting show for us today. I hope you guys are doing awesome. I want to thank everybody who showed up at the Georgia Bigfoot Conference this past weekend. Shout out to all my new friends, all my old friends, and everybody in between. We had such a great time. And I got to meet so many fantastic people, y'all. And if you ever get a chance, please go to these conferences, meet people face to face. Yeah, it's just awesome. Just having so many researchers there to share our stories, swap our stories, find out some new spots to go research at, and some new camping buddies. I got a couple new stickers for my truck. Okay, so my truck, man, I'm not gonna be able to see out of my back windshield one day. Okay, but from all the Bigfoots. All right, y'all. Well, today we're going to be talking about something that we have not discussed here at the Cryptid Hunters channel yet. We're talking about Sheepsquatch. Yes, I said it, Sheepsquatch. Okay. And it's out of West Virginia and Virginia. And this is a serious topic, a serious cryptid. It's been reported since the 1700s in West Virginia. The colonists, okay, we're seeing this thing. Sheep herders were seeing this thing. And I have my suspicions there's more than just one, but I have not remote viewed it. Okay, we're just discussing this today. So I have my friend Dennis Carroll in the studio today to help me unload, I guess, all this information and have a really good discussion on the Sheepsquatch today. Of course, you guys, please go follow, if you want to follow all of my shows, you can go to my website. That's thecryptidhuntress.com. You can find all of the events I'm going to be at and all my shows. And, oh, yeah, I added something else to my calendar. Okay, I think, when is the date? I can't remember the date. I'm going to be sometime in September, I believe, the second weekend of September. I will be at the 4th annual East Tennessee Squatch Out. That's with Manimal Research. Wayne Thothrow is going to be out there, and it's his crew. We're going to be camping out, having a great time. So you guys, if y'all want to sign up for that, y'all come see us. We're staying at a campground called Sasquatch Farm, I think. It's going to be a lot of fun. So yeah, I just added that to the calendar. That's going to be the weekend after Labor Day. So if you're in the Tennessee area, y'all come see me. Okay, but that's on my website. If you guys would like to support the channel and support what I do, you can join my Patreon. That's the Cryptid Huntress on Patreon. Shout out to all my members. Also, we have a membership here on the channel, and that's you just hit the join button on the main page of my YouTube channel, and I put exclusive content up there. Okay. Also, I have a shop that's called War Woman Goods. If you'd like to purchase some jewelry, it's there. Okay, and I do include Cryptid Huntress merch with my packages. I've got a couple of packages on their way to people right now. Okay, so let's get this party started. Okay, shout out to all my moderators in here today. I see y'all and my channel members. Okay, let's get into the topic for today. The West Virginia Sheepsquatch is a white, woolly-haired beast that roams the mountains and forests of the Appalachians. Eyewitnesses describe the Sheepsquatch as being similar in size and shape to a bear, with a long, pointed snout, sharp horns protruding from its head, and paw-like hands tipped with razor-sharp claws. It walks on 4 legs, but it's also seen on 2 legs. Witnesses claim that it smells like rotting flesh and that its eyes glow red at night. Sightings date back to at least the 1760s, with most of the reports being in the mid 1990s. There was a group of campers that were terrorized by Sheepsquatch back in the mid 1990s, and tore their camp apart. There's lots of stories about Sheepsquatch being sighted. It is also called the white beast, I believe is what they call it, the white beast of the Appalachians. It is white. It does look like a sheep. I think it looks like a goat man. But to help me talk about the Sheepsquatch today, I have my friend Dennis Carroll here. Dennis has over 40 years of experience in the paranormal, and he's an author. He has a wonderful YouTube channel called Hunting the Shadows. Please help me welcome to the show today, my friend, Dr. Dennis Carroll. Hey, Dennis.
Good afternoon. It's always a pleasure. I was just listening to you describe that about the Appalachians. I've been all over the Appalachians, and I was talking to a friend of mine just recently who is in Transylvania, Romania, and she was talking about the Carpathian Mountains, all the weird, strange stuff that happens in the Carpathians. I told her you don't have anything on us because we have the Appalachians, okay, and they are very, very strange. You have a lot of weird stuff there. And here's a side note on that. If you look at the continents before they drifted apart, the Appalachians and the Carpathians were connected. So there you go. That's a strange connection there. But the thing about Sheepsquatch that has always fascinated me over the years, and when I got into cryptid research years and years and years ago, I looked at the standard ones, Dogman, Sasquatch, Chupacabra, the vampire type cryptid, all the different ones. Sheepsquatch is one of the strangest cryptids you will ever supposedly encounter in this kind of research. It is very strange. And you mentioned just a second ago that it kind of reminds you of a goat. It kind of reminds me a lot of depictions of a ram, or like the bighorn sheep that are up in the mountains. Yeah, and I have to wonder if there's a connection with that, because you're talking about the Appalachians, you're talking about mountain country. And in West Virginia, you've got a lot of mountains. Definitely, you got a lot of mountain country. And this thing is centralized, though, Jessica, around Mason and Boone counties in West Virginia. I've also been in there, actually, and we're going to talk about it in a little bit. There's a connection between Sheepsquatch and Mothman.
Oh, yeah. Well, West Virginia has their share of cryptids. And I want to thank Boo the Beagle for that super sticker. Thank you. He says Sheepsquatch is just has a bad hair day. Okay. It's a Bigfoot with a bad hair day, maybe, I love that. Yeah. So West Virginia has their share of cryptids. I actually found it, if you just type in West Virginia cryptids on any kind of search engine, there are all sorts of maps that'll pop up that have all the different cryptids. And we have everything from the snarly owl to the Bigfoot, to a water horse, to a werewolf. We have the Grafton monster, the Flatwoods monster, Indrid Coles out of West Virginia. And of course, we have the Mothman, the White Things, and also known as the Devil Dogs, Dennis. Plenty of cryptids to talk about. Do you think it has something to do with that Appalachian mountain range right there?
Definitely, I think. And I'm not saying it's about the people of West Virginia, but West Virginia is weird. Definitely, it has its fair share of some really strange stuff. And the connection supposedly with Mothman and Sheepsquatch, and I have been to the TNT area. I don't know if you've ever been there, but it's a fascinating place. And the TNT area, which is right outside of Point Pleasant, West Virginia, is where the Mothman was sighted. But this is also supposed to be the home of Sheepsquatch as well. And if you get to Point Pleasant, you definitely have to go through Boone County, without a doubt. But supposedly that's the connection going on between that, is that this thing supposedly came out of the TNT area. Now, let me say this about the TNT area: is, like I said, it's a very strange area, and it's got a lot of connections, paranormal type, weird cryptid connections to it, because it is a wildlife place. Okay, it's the McClintock
Mhm.
Wildlife area, and also there is a swamp there. I'm gonna tell you, this swamp looks like something straight out of a horror movie. Okay, it is a very spooky looking swamp. You would think the creature from the Black Lagoon or something would live in this thing. And this right next to the TNT area. And here's the interesting connection, and we may get into this later too. There's a lot of conjecture that Sheepsquatch may actually be a governmental experiment that got loose or went wrong or whatever, however you want to say it, that might be connected to the TNT area, because a lot of that has your men in black. It has a lot of secret government stuff going on, not just connected to the Mothman, but a lot of other things like that map you showed earlier. There's a lot of other stuff going on as well. So you got to wonder, what the true origin of Sheepsquatch really is.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, you can see the Boone County and this where the area, the region where sheep squatch has been seen is right there at the intersection of, Kentucky's close by, Virginia's close by, Tennessee's not too far away, Ohio. I mean, it's all that is right there. There's a whole lot of high strangeness, a lot of strange cryptids right there. We talked about Spearfinger the last time you came on the show, and she is a shape-shifting witch out of the Appalachian Mountains. So there's something going on there. And of course, I just talked on Sunday night on Spaced Out Radio with a gentleman from the North American Dogman Project, Star Fox. We were talking about the Oak Ridge Labs over in Tennessee, and that's kind of right there on that same stretch of mountain range right there. So, very dense woods. I pulled these pictures up to show the audience how thick the woods are there around the mountains.
Right.
Anything could hide in there.
There is definitely some conjecture that this may be something that was. We do know that the government and a lot of other governments in the world, not just ours, are interested in that hybridization of species and stuff. Now, if you look at Sheepsquatch and all the depictions of it and the eyewitness accounts of it, and it really began showing up in the late 1990s or 80s, somewhere in that section, which really got hot, and on into the 2000s. But if you look at it that way, you have to wonder if there was not some kind of a governmental thing going on here. But when you look at Sheepsquatch, there's no human characteristics about it at all. I mean, it doesn't have any, like Goat Man. Goat Man is sort of like half man, half goat kind of thing, like the god Pan or something like that along those lines. That's the interesting thing about Goat Man. But look at Sheepsquatch. That thing is a monster. Think about it. I mean, that is something that should not absolutely exist in nature in that respect, from the natural order of things. You got to wonder, what its true origin is, or if it's some kind of a hybridization, or what is going on with that. Because you've got two or three things. Actually, you look, like I said earlier, like the bighorn sheep. You got that. Look at the fangs. That's kind of like a bear, or maybe even a tiger or something like that. And then the body of what we call Sasquatch is very much like the body of Sasquatch. Although this thing is always depicted, Jessica, as being the color white color. It's called the white thing sometimes by some of the residents of West Virginia. You got to wonder, is it also kin to the Yeti or some of the other higher kind of Sasquatches you hear about? They go up higher mountain ranges. You got to wonder what's going on with this. And look at those, the depiction of the feet and everything, very much like a bear. So you've got 3 or 4 different type of animal characteristics going on here.
You do. Now,
That's weird.
I like this sketch right here because this is from an eyewitness account. It looks like a dog man right here. So it has elements of Bigfoot, has elements of dogman, it has elements of a goat man. It's like a hybrid or something. Now, the way it's described is a large bear-sized quadruped, so it walks on 4 legs, but it also walks on 2 legs.
Like a bear,
It has thick, white, wool-like fur covering its body. It has a long, pointed head like a dog man, okay, or a dog. It has long saber-like teeth. So saber-like teeth, like a saber tooth tiger. Okay. And it has goat-like horns and raccoon-like paws. Now, dogmen are said to have paws that look like or hands that look like raccoon paws. That's how they're commonly described. And they have a long, hairless, possum-like tail, like a marsupial. Okay. And they smell like sulfur, Dennis.
Right. Now, I'm going to talk about that in a little bit because there's supposed to be a black magic connection with this thing as well. And we do know that the Appalachians has its fair share of black magic and all that sorcery type stuff that's going on. But one more thing I want to say, because you do see a lot of depictions of this thing with the ram horns. But like you just said, most of these eyewitnesses are talking about goat horns, which are very smaller in relation to what the bighorn sheep would have. I think that's more of an accurate type of a description with the goat horns other than the ram horns. You know what I'm saying? Because ram horns are very long and curled, like you see there in that picture. They don't look like goat horns. You know.
Yes.
I've been around some goats, and I know how they so there's a big difference in that. So you got to wonder about some of these eyewitness accounts. And what I go, well, whenever it comes down the line, Jessica, I go with the eyewitness accounts. I go with the first person accounts, I call it, because that's better than some of the research, because a lot of the research is conjecture. You know what I'm saying? I like the eyewitness accounts, and that tells you more of the story, of what may be going on. So I agree with you. This thing has more of the attributes of Goatman in that way than it does the bighorn sheep.
It does. And now I thought it was more like a Goatman. The first time I ever saw it, and there's a picture going around the internet, okay, that I've been seeing this picture for so long, and I'm not sure if anyone in the audience has background on this picture, because it looks like a goat man to me. It always looked like a Sasquatch goat man. Now I'm thinking this could be what we're talking about today. This could be a sheepsquatch, or it could be a man in a suit. I don't know. But this thing it's not white, but it has horns. And yeah. Ryan's in the chat. Hey, Ryan Tremblay's in here. He says, sheepsquatch. I'm the goat man. That's cute. The goat. That's funny. The goat is greatest of all time, y'all. Okay. So, but we're talking about the sheep.
Let me straighten something out here. When it comes to goat man, and there has been a reference to the god Pan, the Greek god Pan. We got to remember one thing about Pan and Goatman. The big difference in them, okay, is that Pan is depicted as being a mortal man from the waist up. Okay, He's got the head and everything. That does not look like a mortal man. Okay, when you think about it, the Goatman looks like a goat walking around on two legs. In that respect, instead of four.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so Ryan says, allegedly this photo was taken after a kid went missing. Allegedly, in another photo, you could see it carrying the child's body. Ooh, that's horrible. That adds a whole other element to that.
Oh, yeah.
So, okay, well, I didn't know that. I knew there was some kind of background to this picture, and it's pretty terrifying, because it looks like what I would think is, I guess, a sheepsquatch would be. That's exactly how this has been described, other than the fact that this one is brownish black, and we're talking about something that people describe as being white. Now, we have white Sasquatches, or cream colored or off-white Sasquatches. There's actually one in North Georgia that gets reported.
Right. Well, of course, that's like I said earlier, the description of the Yeti and the higher Himalayas. It's supposed to be white during the winter. It's supposed to be browner color during the summer months and all that in the lower regions of the Himalayas. I think John Keel wrote about that in his book Jadoo, which was a very interesting book, a very interesting experience he had with Yeti. But here's the interesting thing, Jessica. You showed that picture and all that. That the fact is that there are different characteristics between Goatman and Sheepsquatch. you've got two different things, really. You know, a lot of people say, oh, they're confusing the same thing. No, I don't think so, because, like you said in the earlier eyewitness accounts, they talk about that snout being somewhat longer, like that of a canine. You don't see that with goat man. Now, the goat naturally does not has a snout, but it doesn't have a long snout like that. Like you see that picture right there, although I don't know the authenticity of that,
Hmm.
comes very close to what goat man definitely is supposed to look like. And if you look into that, you see that there's a big difference between that and what people describe as the sheepsquatch thing going on. Like I said, the sheepsquatch thing sounds more to me like some kind of weird hybrid of a type creature, whether it got that way unnaturally or whether it was manipulated that way. That's what it sounds like to me. And here's one other thing, that aspect, and we need to look at that when you look at sheep squatch, and that's the black magic sorcery connection. Supposedly, this thing, Jessica, looks very much like a lurker demon. Demons that are called up to guard certain areas. They're also called guardian demons. They look very much like this, and they are a weird hybrid of animal type characteristics connected with them. And we do know that the Appalachians has a very long and varied history of with black magic, witchcraft, stuff like that. So you got to wonder, is there a smoking gun in that direction too? You know?
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, reports of this creature go all the way back to the 1700s. I think it was 1760, if I'm not mistaken. When people were, I want to say they were colonizing the area. The colonials, I guess, were out there. There was a man that was reportedly herding sheep around the mountains on some property, and some of his sheep were attacked by what he described as what we were talking about today, the sheep squatch, mauling some of his sheep to death, and leaving a bunch of carnage out there in the field. So it's been around for quite some time. I mean, and I don't think it would be the same beast. It's probably, if they were around back in the, hundreds of years ago, a couple hundred years ago, 300-400 years ago, whatever, it's going to be a descendant, right? I mean, unless it's a time traveler. I'm just kidding. I don't know.
Makes you wonder.
It makes you wonder. It does. It makes
Yeah.
you wonder. It wouldn't surprise me at this point.
And so whenever I think about the Appalachian Mountains, I think about magic, which I mentioned earlier. That some of these so-called supposed witches, whatever name you want to give them, could actually turn themselves into large black cats, like mountain lions or whatever, or jaguars. Supposedly, they could also change themselves into these type of animals, like sheep squatch. So you're looking at sort of Appalachian's version of a skinwalker in a way, okay? Because that's connected to dark magic in that respect. You have to wonder, at the origin of these things and what lies beneath them and what leads up to these things. But I find it very interesting that the 1700s there was a lot of prevalence of witchcraft, supposedly then, just as much as they are now, if not more so. You have to wonder, it's just very much like the Jersey Devil in that respect. You got a connection there with that too, kind of.
We do, yes. Okay, well, let's get into a couple of accounts from people who were eyewitnesses that had encounters with the sheep squatch up there, because back in 1994 is when there was kind of an uptick in some of the sightings. One of the sightings in the 1990s was actually a former Navy seaman who encountered the sheep squatch while he was in the woods. It was near a creek. He said he thought it was a log. Okay, now the way he described that, he thought it was a log. That's how a lot of people describe their Sasquatch encounters. They think it's just a tree because it's something that just sits there and it's camouflage. It looks like a tree stump until it moves. Okay, so when it moved, that's when he realized that it wasn't a tree stump. And he said that it didn't have any kind of behavior. It didn't move like a regular animal. Okay, and that's also a way that people describe Sasquatch sightings and cryptid sightings.
That's the way, like I say, that shapeshifter thing.
Hmm.
You could look like inanimate objects just as well as an animal in that respect. You got some kind of, I don't know, dark magic thing like going on with that in that respect. If you're dealing with shapeshifters, that's how you become a shapeshifter, basically in that respect. But here's another interesting thing. There is a UFO connection with sheep squatch. There have actually been some sheep squat sightings supposedly connected with UFO sightings, and we do know that there are a lot of UFO sightings around West Virginia. You don't know if that's a really strong connection or just a coincidence kind of a thing. But you got to wonder about that too. I wouldn't surprise to me be a surprise to me if the Men in Black didn't get involved with sheep squat sightings. There may be some of those out there, but I remember one eyewitness, Jessica, talked about seeing sheep squats sitting down in a ditch. And they actually came upon him sitting in the ditch, and he kind of like looked up, and kind of the way they sounded to me like an animal would feel threatened, you know, that he got up out of the ditch and rushed them and then scared them off, kind of like an ape would do in the bush or whatever. Um, and Sasquatch has been cited doing things like that as well, trying to warn people off or scare them away from him, which makes sense if you're trying to survive against somebody like mankind. You definitely want to give them a boundary not to cross over. And that's an interesting thing about sheep squatch. She sort of has that characteristic in common with Sasquatch.
Hmm. Absolutely. Sure. Okay. So this thing has not only been spotted by adults, it's been spotted by children as well who've had encounters. And there were two children that were playing in their backyard in Boone County. Okay, because most of these accounts are around Boone County, like you had stated earlier.
Yeah.
They saw a large white creature resembling a bear. It shocked them because it stood on its hind legs, and they said it was at least over 6 feet tall.
Hmm.
They said that actually the children scared it more than it scared the children, they believe, or they were equally as scared. And so the sheep squatch ran off. I believe it was on two legs, fleeing through the forest, breaking branches
Well,
along the way.
there's been some criticism, Jessica, that this is a mangy bear that people have seen. I don't
Mm.
believe that because I have seen mangy bears, okay, and they do look very skinny. They look very weird. But the sheep squatch is always described as being very bulky, very big, and very heavy. Completely different from what you would think a mangy bear would look like. Although it does have, like I said earlier, it does have the characteristics of the bear feet like, and supposedly it has left very bizarre like bear tracks in the woods that people
Mhm.
are supposed to have seen, but they're not completely like bear tracks. Now, if you've had any experience with cryptid research and getting out of the woods and all that, you got to learn your tracks. You got to learn you know what I'm talking about. You know well what I'm talking about. You got to learn your tracks, even the fauna around you, the animals that live. You need all that. And when people come back and say, "Hey, we didn't recognize these kind of tracks," you got to pay attention to that. Because something definitely out of the ordinary going on.
That's right. Yes. Okay. So I have done a breakdown of animal tracks on my remote viewing show because the past couple of weeks I had remote viewed the Beast of Bladenboro out of North Carolina, which is not terribly far from there. It's on the East Coast over
Mhm.
here. And also the unspecified animal attack of Brenda Hamilton as well. And so I went over big cat tracks, coyote tracks, dog tracks, and just to compare them, to compare and contrast, because as a Bigfoot field researcher, we have to know our animal tracks, especially the ones that are in
Absolutely.
the areas that we're researching, because we need to not only know what's if there's food out there, first of all, for the Bigfoots, I'm looking for deer track and deer sign
Right.
when I'm out in the
Right.
field, but we have to know what's tracking us. Okay. There
You
could be
have to
big tracks.
study the complete habitat. Yeah, that's what you got to
Mhm.
go after. And you have to even be careful how you look at tracks because sometimes they can mislead you. An animal can step in its own track sometimes, or what we call a double track or smeared track. Can look very weird unless you don't know what you're looking at. So you got to take into account where the track is, what kind of mud or rock or whatever thing. But let me say this: every animal that walks this planet, that walks on this planet, I'm not talking about birds because they fly, but every animal that walks on this planet eventually leaves a track. It leaves a
Mhm.
trail. You just need to know and look at what you're looking at to understand what it is you're seeing. And even sheepsquatch would definitely, unless they are smart enough to obliterate their tracks, like I have heard Sasquatch supposedly does. If they're smart enough to do that, then that's a problem you got to run into. But you can even tell that if you know what you're looking for. But when people come back and say we saw these sheepsquatch prints and all that, and there was nothing like we've ever seen before. That is very interesting to me. I just wonder. I try to find out if anyone has ever actually cast any of these tracks. I don't know if you found out anything on that or not, but I was never able to actually see if anybody, like Bigfoot casts
Mhm.
on the sheepsquatch.
No, I didn't find anyone. I didn't find any casted tracks when I was doing my research on this one. Not to say there aren't any. They have so many cryptids up there. I'm sure there's plenty of Bigfoot field research teams. Just like with my team, when we're out in the field, we're out there for Bigfoot, but we're experiencing whatever's out there. So we never know
Right.
what we're going to come across. Now, you had mentioned earlier about the case of there was a couple driving down the road and they saw the sheep squatch in a ditch. They didn't know it was a
Uh-huh.
sheep squatch, but they had something very different and very interesting to add to the description of the sheep squatch. They said that they were driving down the highway. They saw a large white beast sitting calmly in the ditch in the roadway. They had stopped the car for a closer look. They said that the massive creature had wool-like fur covering its body, and when it turned around and looked at them, it had two sets of eyes. It had four eyes on its face,
Oh,
Dennis.
mhm. That's
Not
weird. That's
just
weird. I
eyes.
want to tell you,
Yeah.
Jessica, that sounds to me like some type of a supernatural creature. And if you are dealing with a supernatural creature, they don't leave tracks, or they can make their tracks go away if they want to. Whatever situation, but four eyes, I read that struck me as very strange. That sounds like something from a supernatural point of view.
Yes. Absolutely. Well, and it also did something else. It was not typical because a lot of people that have the sightings just have a sightings. Well, with this group, or with this couple that experienced it, they said that it actually ran towards them and attacked their car. Okay, it actually leapt out of the ditch with surprising agility and began to attack the car. They were so scared they just drove off. When they got home, they didn't stop the car till they got home. And when they got out, they discovered large scratches on the side of their car. Now they believe
Hmm.
that it could have been because, I mean, I guess it felt threatened by them, and also probably was a little territorial, I guess.
Hmm. That's very interesting. That a physical creature would definitely leave scratches on a car, without a doubt. And when we said that these things may be shapeshifters, we're not basically saying that they are skinwalkers. They may be related to them in that way. They have some of the attributes, but you don't paint any of this with a broad brush, because it's very important that you know exactly what you're talking about and exactly what you're referring to in these things. But they do have similar traits, and you have to wonder about something that can very much like Lizard Man in South Carolina, which I have tried. Um, he left chewed up bumpers. I mean, so that's
Yeah.
definitely not, in my books, supernatural in that respect. Uh, so you have to wonder, what is this? And like I said earlier, this thing strikes me as being some type of a weird hybrid type thing.
It does. I know. It just sounds like so many different cryptids tied into one. And but also when you think about it, and I have some pictures here too of some of these other kind of weird hybrids as well that have it. They're very Sasquatch like, but they have something else going on with them, like the
Hmm.
Kustaker, the Otter Man out of Canada and Alaska. They have the Otter Man, which looks very similar to a Sasquatch, but
Hmm.
it's like got an otter head, but kind of like a Sasquatch body. We also have, of course, the dog man. Oh no, that's bat squatch,
Oh, yeah.
actually. That's bat squatch.
Yeah.
We have a bat squatch. It's like a Sasquatch with wings. That's been seen at Mount Shasta out in California. So strange
Yeah,
hybrids, right?
the bat squatch in Texas. You have the bat squatch. That's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it just there's even a beer. I don't think this is the beer, but there's these are really popular cryptids. I did see a beer can with the Bat Squatch logo. Okay, I thought that was kind of fun. But I mean, who's to say these aren't some kind of weird? Some of these are some weird, hybrid government agency program thing. I don't know, or maybe they've just always been here. Maybe they've been here longer than we have, Dennis.
Well, and we say we stick Squatch on that because we're more like I have actually seen Sasquatch. I know he exists without a doubt in my book. Okay, I know he exists, but we tend in our descriptions to stick things that we're familiar with onto something that we're unfamiliar with. To help try to describe it. We can do that sometimes, erroneously, unfortunately. But you got to wonder. When I hear about sheep squatch, the one characteristic that sticks out to me compared to Sasquatch is the body bulk of it. Sasquatch is more muscular, human-wise, muscular, than this thing is being described as, like you said earlier, woolly-like, kind of like the woolly mammoth type thing. It's kind of very bulky, very much like a bear. Okay. Although bears are muscular, you won't see that musculature unless there's kind of, like we said earlier, they're very, they're hungry. They haven't fed right for a while. They have some kind of disease or whatever the situation. You don't see that musculature on them, So you got to wonder about that. We tend to say Sasquatch on it, but I wonder a lot of times if we're not misrepresenting that in that respect,
That's true. Okay, so I was not going to bring this up today. But I thought about it, and I thought I had uploaded a picture, and then I was like, I changed my mind. Let's go here. Okay, I'm going to go there with this statement. Okay, so Dennis, when I was a kid, and this is what spawned my memory. It was Area 51. Thank you for being here, Juanito. Talking about I wonder if they're just people in wardrobe, like the new version of The Wrong Turn. Would they wear sheep heads and look like Sheepsquatch, but they were secluded people that did rituals. Okay. All right. So, Dennis, when I was a kid, we had like a small town festival in my hometown, and I was in a dance troupe. Okay. And I was a little kid. I danced, and we were changing costumes between our ballet routine and our tap routine or jazz or whatever in the local Masonic lodge. Okay. And I've always been hesitant to talk about this. Okay. But it was, I started getting bored. I guess I was like wandering around after the performances and stuff. And I was going places where I shouldn't go. I was opening up closet doors and stuff. And I came across a costume. Okay. And I'm not trying to give secrets away for the Masons. I don't know. But I remember walking in a closet, and there was a gigantic mask, and it was like it looked like a goat man head. It was like Baphomet. Now that I know what it is, okay, it was like Baphomet. Okay, and so God, I probably shouldn't be talking about this, but it looked just like this. Okay, let me pull this picture up again. So whenever I see this, I think of like what Juan was saying, Juanito in here, Area 51 said, what if it was, it's like a costume or something. And so when I saw this, that's always what I've thought of, because it looked a lot like that goat head thing that I'd seen in that lodge when I was a kid. Okay, we've got that factor too in all of this.
Yeah, well, they still are right now available, and I've seen some people do this for Halloween. Have actually dressed up as goat man. I mean, there's very, very elaborate costumes that look very, very realistic. There's always that factor there that you might have, someone doing this kind of thing. But to actually dress up like that and sit in a ditch and wait for hours for somebody to come by and stop and look at you is
It,
kind of, strange to think about. Or why you would take the chance of actually putting on a costume like that and going out in the woods. You're taking your own life in your own hands because somebody would definitely shoot you. So that I would not advise doing that. But here's one other thing, since I mentioned the black magic connection earlier, there is a big distinct connection between goats and the satanic stuff, okay? There's a big symbolism there. And as a folklorist, I study a lot of symbolism and stuff like that, imagery, I call it, of these things. And back when I was in law enforcement, we even took these classes on how to, discern these things about Satanism and all that stuff because we ran into a lot of that. They gave out, I remember, it made me think about what you were talking about, the costumes. They gave out T-shirts and they had the goat head on them with a line through it, and it was called Goat Busters. Okay, that was that's kind of a connection there on that. That always makes me think about that too, because you see the goat head as a big symbol in satanic rites and all that kind of stuff going on in the occult and all that. You have to wonder about, like I said earlier, about the connection between this and demonology in that respect too, because there are certain demons. I hate to say this, Jessica, that look a heck of a lot like the sheepsquatch. Okay, they do look a
okay.
lot like him in their depictions of what they're supposed to be, their description of what they're supposed to look like. So you got to wonder about that too. But here's one more thing I think about when it comes to sheepsquatch, and like I said, we talked about this earlier about that. I had my own kind of encounter with something like this. And this was years ago. And like I said, I've spent a lot of time in the woods in my day, a lot of time, way out in the middle of nowhere. And that's where I was when this happened. There was another guy with me, but he was like maybe 2 or 3 miles from my position of where I was at. This was in broad daylight. It wasn't at night. And I was in one part of the woods. I mean, we're miles away from farmland or anything. Okay. And I hear a sheep, the bleating of the sheep. And I said, well, what? First of all, I thought it might have been a goat because they do sound similar, a sheep and a goat. So what the heck is that? And what's it doing out here in the middle of these woods? And it was very much like, but here's the interesting thing about it. It was sort of a deeper grunt like to it. And a lot of people say, oh, you probably heard a wild hog. No, I've heard wild hogs. I have heard everything that are in these woods around me. Okay, I know what they sound like, and this was not a fox. It was not a hog. This was something I had never heard before in the woods, and it sounded so similar, like to a sheep or a goat or something like that. And then here's the weird thing, Jessica. It sort of began to kind of try to lead me deeper into the woods. I would follow this sound, trying to figure out where it was, because I thought it was maybe somebody's pet goat wandered off in here, something. I didn't really think about sheepsquatch, okay, when this was going on, and I said maybe it's somebody's goat. And so I follow, and it keeps leading me deeper and deeper to the woods. I said, oh, this is not good, and it would do. And here's the weird thing: it would circle me. Sometimes it would be over here in this direction, and one time it'd be over in this direction, and there was no wind blowing. Sometimes the wind will distort sound. There was no wind that day, but it was like playing a game with me, and like it was trying to lead me off into the woods. I said, "Okay, that's enough." And in about 30 minutes, the noise stopped, and I just turned around. I said, "I'm not going to play this game with you," and I left. But and thinking back on it later, I thought, wonder maybe was that an encounter with sheepsquatch or goat man or whatever, because it was very odd that he would use that kind of a noise, but yet it wasn't. I mean, I've heard sheep, I've heard goats, but it has sort of a deeper guttural type sound to it than just a regular sheep or a goat bleating would kind of a sound. It was very odd, very weird. I often wondered if that was something I was encountering like that.
Yeah, it sounds pretty terrifying. It sounds like a pack of wild coyotes trying to lure you out, and then with one little scout that goes out, and then you go into the woods, and lo and behold,
Yeah,
you're in the middle of
yeah,
a sheep squatch, you know,
yeah.
beat down. I guess I don't know. That's
Makes you
crazy.
wonder. You
It
have to
does.
wonder, definitely.
It it
Yeah.
does. Well, that's a very interesting encounter, and to hear it firsthand, that's pretty awesome. And there was actually some campers. There was a big group of campers. There were at least 6 of them back in 1999 who had a sheep squatch actually charge at them from the woods while they were out at their campsite camping. They thought it was like an agitated bear. Um, but when they got into the campfire, it charged at them. They took off running. They fled to the safety of, they said, their house. So I don't know if their house was close by or if they got in their car and went to their house. But when they got back the next day, they came back the next day. They had been terrified. They said that right before as they were running off, it let out a terrible scream. Now, I've been screamed at by a Bigfoot before, or something. I couldn't see what it was. We assumed it was a Bigfoot. Um, I've never in my life heard anything like that before. And I'll never forget that ever for the
God.
rest of my life.
That's the way it was with this thing. I had never heard a sound like that. I mean, that's the only way I could say it was similar to that. Like I said earlier, that's the descriptions we use, something that we're familiar with, but it doesn't always adequately describe what it is we're encountering, just like you're talking about there. Uh, you have to wonder what the heck is going on with that, Definitely.
Yes. Yes, for sure. For sure. Now, they said something interesting too, is when they got back the next day to their campsite, it looked like the ground had been tilled, which is like where you take some gardening tools and you pull up all the dirt, like you're going to plant seeds. For the people who aren't familiar, I'm not even that familiar with it. But anyways,
Well,
it's tidbit.
there are many accounts of dogmen being seen in cemeteries digging up graves, fresh graves. You have to wonder if these things do not live off maybe sometimes the roots in the ground that they feed off of, sometimes stuff like that. And why would they tear up ground if they're not looking for something? Definitely. That's a lot of work unless you're looking for something to eat or something you want to find. I found that account very interesting. I read that same account. It was very interesting and how that went. And it was almost as if this thing were haunting them in a way, afterwards in their encounter with it. Very strange.
Very strange. Amy, thank you for that super sticker. I appreciate that so much. Oh my gosh. You guys, everybody in the chat today, you guys are leaving some great comments today. Man, I'm really enjoying this. And yes, there are some funny sheep squash jokes going on too. Thank you, Castle Dude. I see those, Neil. Okay, well, let's see. Let's go to, okay, so it's not just West Virginia, Dennis, where this thing has been spotted too. It was also spotted in Virginia. In Virginia in 2015, so that's a lot more recent, even though it's still been a few years. But let's see. There were more campers out of in the Appalachian woods. They had settled down for the night. They spotted the sheep squatch crouched down. I was going to say crotch down. That doesn't sound right. It was crouched down on a nearby hill. One of the campers alerted to its presence. And then as soon as everybody looked at it, the creature stood up. They said it was 8 to 9 feet tall. And it had a shoulder width of 4 to 5 feet long, Dennis. That's huge. That's like a Sasquatch size right there. But they said that it began to charge down the hill towards the campsite. Let's see. It came through the river. Like it ran through the river at them. And it looked like a dog. They were saying it looked more like a dog. It let out a loud guttural yell, like a screech, and hold on, let me back up. They said as it got down and it charged at them, they heard a loud guttural screech from across the mountain. Okay, so it stopped right before it got to them. When it heard another one screaming in the distance, it stopped. It looked at them. It took a momentary pause, and then it took off running towards that screech. Like something, like its mama got mad and called it back home right before it got him.
Yeah. Yeah. Or warn them, you better get away from those. Definitely, without doubt, these things would have some form of communication, and they do exhibit a curiosity. They like to watch us and see what we're doing, and probably they're not only curious; it's a part of their survival thing. Mankind is dangerous. There's the number one danger to these things, so they would be very wary of us. Definitely, I would keep an eye on strangers in my neighborhood. Definitely, we all do that, whether unconsciously we know it. When somebody that we don't know shows up, we're very wary of them. That's a natural thing in us. That's our part of our survival thing. Um, and I think these creatures would have the same abilities and attributes, definitely.
Yeah.
It was Mama with cookies, yeah.
Mama with cookies. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that was actually, it was really kind of emphasized in some of the reports that I was reading, is the fact that the creature stopped and actually, because I'm not going to say it gives it like more of a humanistic trait, or just humanistic. That sounds kind of weird, because they're definitely not humans. I mean, or we don't know. I don't know. I think Sasquatch are like just forest people, right? They've got like human elements to them.
Oh yeah.
But it gives it more of a humanistic kind of characteristic, I think. So
And here's another thing about sheepsquatch. You don't hear too many actual physical attacks on people, like you have heard about maybe Dogman supposedly doing this. Dogman's more violent in some ways and aspects than the sheepsquatch is. Like I said, he seems to be more curious about us, and wanting to kind of warn us away or say, "Hey, this is my territory. Stay out of it," kind of thing. And a lot of these creatures are territorial. That's just their makeup.
That's right. Well, okay, so I met a lot of really cool people at the Georgia Bigfoot conference, and in that area where they had the conference is one of my research areas, actually, because we have so many Sasquatch sightings up there. I mean, that's where I've had the majority of my Bigfoot encounters, was up there in the northeastern, just the northern part of Georgia, in the North Georgia mountains, in the Appalachians, and I met a lot of cool people that live up there. And I never give my exact locations away, but I did meet a man who lived on the road, one of the roads that leads up to one of the spots where I go. I didn't tell him exactly everything, but he also wasn't telling me everything too. But he, as far as like where he lived, but he was saying that he doesn't go outside at night. Now I just saw, is it Roger? Did you just write that? The only time I go out in the woods and hills are here close to where I live, so I can get home within walking distance if I have to. Okay, that's this gentleman up in the mountains told me that there are Bigfoots all around his house, and that he does not go outside at night at all. Okay, it's bad enough to where he doesn't go outside because they're out there every single night, and it's just it gives him a bad feeling, and he's not comfortable. And he said there's a lot of stuff in those woods. He said it's not just Bigfoots. But it's enough to keep. This is a grown man. He doesn't go outside.
Yeah. Well, I think that kind of bears like common sense. You can't see as well at night. Things can really sneak up on you. It's not really good. And I've often told this to people who hunt Sasquatch or Dogman and all that. You want to go at night? No. That's not a good idea usually, because you can't see as well. It's really much better. I would much rather hunt during daylight where you can see what it is you're looking at and all that. And since I've never encountered Dogman myself, if I ever do, I want to get a good look at him. Okay, if I live to tell you about it, that's it. That's the interesting part. But anyway, I want to get a good look at him, just like I was able to get a good look at Bigfoot that night. Although my incident happened at nighttime, but I would prefer you and everybody out there to hunt in daytime would be the best time to do it, and not at night. It's much more dangerous, definitely. Not just running into these creatures, but you can get hurt out there in the woods very easily at night by falling over a stump or a fence or whatever. So you got to be careful.
Okay, well that just takes the fun right out of it if you can't go at nighttime, because that's when they're all out there. But see, I'm a different breed of person. I like to be out there in the middle of the night. Matter of fact, I got
Yeah.
some Bigfooting in this past weekend when I was at the Georgia Bigfoot Conference. I went out in the field, I went out to the woods, and we got surrounded again, like we did last year before the conference, by something. This time, I'm not sure what it was. It was a Bigfoot situation last year. This year, it was just something. There was actually on all fours, okay, and it wasn't a bear, so it could have been a Bigfoot. But yeah, it's not for everybody. Bigfooting and cryptid research out in the field is not for everybody, for sure. And even for the people who live in the mountains. Like I said, that gentleman does not go outside at night at all unless there's an emergency.
Now, if you're camping, you're going to be out, but you can stay in your tent, stay around your campsite. That's good. There's safety in numbers, definitely. And, or if you've got somebody camping with you, whatever the situation is, it's better to stay at a base than out wandering through the woods. That's not a good idea. Anytime, whether you're hunting deer or bear or whatever you're looking for, it's not a good idea to do that, really.
No. It's not. It's not. But yeah, this is just another cryptid to add to the list of all the really interesting cryptids out on the Appalachian Trail and the Appalachian Mountains. Yeah, I would personally be hesitant to ever take a trip up the Appalachian Trail, especially by myself. People actually do that, Dennis. They hike the trail alone.
Yeah, and you got a lot of bad human actors out there too. That's the bad thing about it. There's been a lot of disappearances on the Appalachian Trail. I was reading a very strange account about this lady who really knew her way around the woods, kind of like you. She knew how to deal with these things, but she had been doing it for years and years and years. She was a mushroom hunter, by the way. She would look for different varieties of mushrooms. She mysteriously disappeared. You have a lot of that going on in the Appalachians. So it's not just sheepsquatch you got to worry about out there. It's a lot more to it than that, definitely.
Yeah, a lot. Yeah. Oh, Maureen, thank you so much for that super sticker. Oh my gosh, the girl and her gong. Thank you from you and Gus. I know. Thank you so much. That is so sweet. Yeah. I don't know. I mean, it seems like the list of cryptids around the Appalachians never runs out. I talk about the Appalachian Mountains at this point. I feel like I do this every week. We're talking about something out of the Appalachian Mountains. And yeah, I don't think there's any reports of the sheepsquatch in Georgia. I have not taken any reports of that. I have not heard of any kind of horned Bigfoot. I mean, that's the way I would imagine people would describe this thing, would be a horned Bigfoot. Okay, if someone were to describe that to me here in Georgia. So not heard of it.
Definitely. Yeah, a lot of the eyewitness accounts, that's what I like. The eyewitness accounts are the best. You get a little bit more of a picture of what you're researching when you go through that. But there's a lot of other good authors out there who have written things on this stuff, and I would advise people to go to them too and read some of their stuff, not just on sheepsquatch, but on Sasquatch, Dogman, and all the rest of them. Definitely, there's a lot of good books out there that you can do your research on. There's armchair research and there's physical research. So there's a big difference, but they're both very important.
Yes, they're very important. Dennis, for Candy, thank you so much for that super sticker. I appreciate that. Just let me pull that up. Thank you. I appreciate it. Dennis, you've written several books? Okay, have you written any books on the Appalachian cryptids? Because I can tell you've done your research on this stuff before, and if you haven't, will you write a book on it one day?
Well, I think the folklore is what you really need to look at. Folklore, that's why I'm so big on folklore. It tells us a lot of things that we know, and it goes back so many hundreds of years. And there's a connection between folklore, superstition, magic, and tradition, and all the stories that you hear about on these things. They're all connected. And the deeper you get into that, the more of a better picture you get on it, the more of a grasp you can have on it. Definitely.
Oh yeah, for sure. Candy said gas money for squatching. Oh my gosh. How y'all know I'd love getting gas money for squatching. Man, I do. It's yeah, I'd love to go squatching more, by the way. How can I make a living out of this, Dennis? That's what I want to know. I'll go hunt a sheep squatch. Somebody wants to sponsor me. I need some sponsors. That's what it is.
Yeah,
But
that's good.
yeah, man. Well, I think that we've covered the sheep squatch pretty well. There are more encounters. As a matter of fact, I believe it was like Destination America. I don't know. Is that still a channel? I don't know. I don't have cable.
Oh yeah.
But there's, or maybe it's
Yeah.
a show. I don't remember. But I think it was like Destination America. They had a show on the sheep squatch that I did watch. Okay, and they had a lot of eyewitness accounts. Brown Dwarf, what's up, Brown? He was asking about, where did all these accounts come from? Well, a lot of them came from, eyewitness accounts that I was watching online of people doing videos, and everything I took was from online accounts. Okay, so and from that show as well. I have never, like I said, I have never taken my own. I've never taken any accounts from here in Georgia of a sheep squatch before, but mostly what we have down here are Bigfoot and dogs.
I think Small Town Monsters did a thing on sheep squatch one time. Yeah, Small Town Monsters, yeah.
Mountain Monsters. I think that's another show too.
Yeah.
You can find it. It's all out there. And oh yeah, I love, oh man, so much with the gullah culture too. The plant eye, an episode.
Oh yeah.
Hey Coco. Okay, so an episode on the plant eye would be great. I've never heard of that. Yeah. The plant eye.
There are a lot of really interesting gullah traditions. Very superstitious and very deep in the folklore. I like the gullah stuff. We might have to do a show on that sometime, definitely.
Well, you're over in South Carolina, so you know something about the gullah tradition over there. Yeah. Charles, oh my gosh. Okay, so Tallapoosa is not far from me. Okay, and my son loves that Veterans Memorial Park over there. Oh my God, I've done a TikTok video with him, that tank. That was in Tallapoosa, by the way. Charles says the sighting in Tallapoosa was something white and very unusual, other than a Bigfoot. Wow. Okay, so that's in West Georgia. Actually, that is on the way down to the troop herd corridor where I do my research. Some of my research down there. So I'm going to look into that, Charles.
Yeah.
So thank you. Yeah, and Roger says you have the Scottish, Irish, and Native American folklore blended into the folklore in the Appalachia. That's right. A lot of
oh yeah, that's a very interesting blend. Yeah.
Yeah, very cool blend over there. This is there's just so much out there. I'm going to definitely be looking into that to that white thing. We've also got the Alabama white thing as well, and Tallapoosa basically touches Alabama. Okay, and like this whole side of the state over where I live, we're right here on the border of Alabama. My friend Glenn, who's on my team, has actually seen the Alabama white thing, or what he believes to be white. And we have that white Bigfoot up in North Georgia as well.
Oh yeah, you've got a lot in Georgia, Alabama, Mississippi, Louisiana. By down, you got the Rougarou in Louisiana. You got some really strange stuff going on there, and you've got the voodoo influence of New Orleans and that area. And then you go into Texas, you've got some very interesting land. The South is ripe with this stuff. Definitely, I think it's got something to do with our traditional outlook on our own history. In that respect, our history lives for us. In some areas, unfortunately, they let their history die or go down way low. Well, we don't do that in the South. Our history is venerated, it's remembered, and it's kind of still living with us in that respect.
Oh yeah. Okay, so Hannah, that's some of my stomping grounds. Okay, Alabama along the Tallapoosa Forest. In Cheaha, that's near the Talladega Forest. Okay, I love going to Cheaha. Their entire where you go to check in, like at the check-in station, they have Bigfoot wall to wall. Okay, with like plushies, magnets, keychains, everything is Bigfoot. They really embrace the Bigfoot sightings that they have at Cheaha State Park in Alabama. I highly recommend going there. Lots of Bigfoots in that area, and once you get up to the top of that mountain, there's a carved Bigfoot, like a life-size carved Bigfoot out of a tree stump up there. So really cool stuff. Lots of Bigfoots in the South. And apparently there's a new one that I'm going to be searching for in Tallapoosa now. That might be, I mean, boy, it'd be awesome to have a sheep squatch down here in Georgia. I think it'd be kind of cool. Yeah. Always looking for new.
That was, that's the first thing years ago, Jessica, when I got into cryptid research, and that was many years ago. I'm not gonna say how long ago it was. Anyway, that's the first thing that struck me. There's so much about Bigfoot. It's got to exist. There's so much out there. It's got to be a real thing, you know. When so many different people see things, just like with Sheepsquatch or with Dogman, when so many people see these things, there's got to be some definitely a little bit of fire to that smoke, you know, somewhere, and that's what you look for. To me, and that's where folklore comes in. That's why I'm so big on folklore. Folklore is sort of like the signs on the highway, pointing us the direction we need to go.
Yeah, for sure. Candy, I will check my Facebook after the show today, and we will definitely do that. Yeah, there's Bigfoot
Anubis,
everywhere
you know,
on Air
look at
Force
Egyptian
Ones.
history. When you talk about these hybrids, you think about Egyptian history, Anubis and all this. People with animal heads. There was a real hybrid thing going on that. Those were the gods of Egypt. Anubis was the original dogman. So you've got, you know, so many different connections in our history and in our folklore and our cultures that you can't ignore them.
That's right. Yeah. Charles, I totally believe it. So the Talladega Speedway is right there at the Talladega National Forest. And so for you guys who are NASCAR fans, you might know about the Talladega Speedway over there. There's also a big old prison over there too. Okay. Don't ask me how I know. I've been there. I used to work for the
Mhm.
government. So, but yeah, there's a lot. The woods are dense out there, and there are a lot of Bigfoot sightings. And
Oh
I may
yeah,
or may not do some research out there sometime. So I know all about it. But
especially around a national forest. You got
that's right.
some weird stuff going on in national forests
Yes,
everywhere.
we do. We do. Well, Dennis, this has been amazing. I've had a really great time talking to you today, and I know you have a show tonight on your channel. Tell the audience about your YouTube channel and where they can find you.
Okay, my show, Hunting the Shadows, will be on tonight. As a matter of fact, I will be doing phase two, Phantasms and Doppelgangers. This is something that you haven't heard too much about, and that's going to be very interesting. And I also have another show, which is Paranormal Point of View, on Friday nights. It's going to be delayed this Friday night till 10 o'clock, but I'll be doing that as well. Also, you can get in contact with me or find out any more information on all this stuff on my website, which is denniswcarroll.com.
All right. Yeah, you guys, please go over and subscribe to Hunting the Shadows on YouTube. I believe Gerald just put that up in the chat. So there's a link in the live chat right now. So yes, Dennis, you're always so much fun to hang out with, and I have a great time with you. Yes, Maureen's put it up in the chat. So you guys, please go and subscribe. Okay,
Thank you.
well, I guess this is we're gonna wrap it up, I guess, because I got to go
Yeah,
pick up my kid from school today, and I oh
we'll
by
turn
the
sheep.
way, yeah,
We'll turn sheep squatch loose for a while here. Okay, yeah,
we will. Okay, well, if you guys want
definitely.
to come hang out with me again tonight, uh,
Um,
yeah, go ahead, Dennis. Okay,
mhm. All
okay,
right.
so tonight I'm gonna actually be on Scary Cast. That's on live on iHeartRadio tonight. My son is actually going to be interviewed tonight on Scary Cast about his personal Bigfoot
Oh,
encounter and his Bigfoot sighting. And this is going to be his worldwide debut. We're not showing his face. Okay. I've always been hesitant about letting my son be public, okay, with this stuff because he's too young at the moment. But he is going to be on a radio show tonight, and I will be there with him
oh,
on Scary Cast talking about our experience in the woods with his first Bigfoot sighting. Okay. And so y'all come join us. I will have a link to that. I don't have a link yet, but as soon as I get one, I'll put it all over my social media and here in the community tab on my YouTube. That's 8 p.m. Eastern tonight on iHeartRadio. It's called Scary Cast with Dr. John Stamey, friend of the show. Okay. Awesome. Well, you guys have a great day. Dennis, thank you so much for being here. I hope everybody learned something today.
pleasure.
The pleasure is all mine, and I hope that you guys learned something. I learned something, and I will see you guys back here tomorrow night at 8 p.m. with my remote viewing show. And Dennis, we'll see you tonight over on your channel. Okay. And y'all also come see me this weekend on Spaced Out Radio Sunday night. All right, Dennis, have a great day. I will see you guys later. Have a good day. Bye.